Stay near small dreams while I count the ways I love you. Adoration louder than the screams as I trace your gentle face. Stay clear of small streams, for they churn to hold and kiss you. And if I sing from this high place, will you heed my heart and stay? Near me, small dream, for a joy it is to know you. And though my eyes are open, I long for your final grace. Fill me, unended, I crave that quiet clearing. And if my heart is rended, climb into it and feel safe. Bathe me, last light, in your terror and your glory. May my heart be brave and pure before magic ends our story. The moon would be full this morning if it wasn't so intent on saying goodbye. There's one moment as she sets and the sun begins to rise where they're able to lock eyes across the curve of this planet, and for only a moment, they only see sorrow before ancient clocks shoo them on. It is now day, the final day, and the long breadcrumb trail of history. We see Fen, not as much of a village as it is a scar, healed over from ancient hurts left to fester and wait. It exists, if any of us do, on the borders of the endless swamp in the forbidden wood. We see built on the docks of long abandoned attempts at civilization, a small clumping of buildings. They bend and sway in the wind and the water, barely held together, if any of us are. This isn't a place where one goes to live, and yet humanoids from all across the world journey here in small tricklings, maybe 2 or 3 a month, arrive with haunted eyes and sureness of step, having been called here by choice, or like yourself reading this story, by destiny. But lately, they come in crowds, in boats, on foot or wing. The call is louder and it is more clear. Your bones haven't lied to you, the cards are not vague. The tea leaves begin to cry. Indeed, all signs point to this being the end. Away from the pilgrims' camp live the true guardians of this fossil. Some have been here for centuries, watching the swamp, watching the entrance to the wood, helping, aiding to an extent, the pilgrims who come. They watch them offer their most prized possessions to the swamp and then guide them to the path that leads into the forbidden wood. None ever return. It is to one of these angels of soil, of wood and blood that we now go to. Humbly, for we are just pilgrims here. This is their home. We begin simply in a pile of what one may see as trash unless they've learned to love. Hidden from walkways to avoid being crushed or saddened, we see a small cluttering in the back of the broom closet in the only functional and full structure. We see clothes and bones and letters and tools begin to stir, a sleepy and joyful yawn is audible before we know its origins. Dolly. What do we see when we see Dolly, and how is Dolly spending this final and single morning?
On this final and single morning, in the broom closet, on the only mostly upright building in the village, she sits up and she yawns and she does a big stretch, and what you see is not so much a person at first glance, more of a thing, more of a shape. As she stands up, she is a doll. Loosely, one could consider her a doll. She's a little person made out of old, graying burlap sacks, stitched together all the way around the edges. Her face is made of her eyes are 2 bright black buttons, and her mouth is just an open area. You can kind of see there's a little fluff, a little bit of paper, and she has a little stitched smile. And at one point she may have had a face painted on, but the humidity and the rain and her own bustling, has kind of smeared it. And she stands up and she looks around her little messy room and she thinks, today's the day.
And today truly is the day. Outside through your little closet door, you hear a little bit of hustle and bustle. Some folks already having woken up and started the day in their own way. If you do emerge, you would see it to be more of like a communal cafeteria space. The bar, tavern, slash has been turned into more of a buffet situation for the people who end up living here for a little while, pulling together the few things they have to make meals and whatnot. They turn and see you, and you hear an old, the janitor's awake. And you see a very large bear in a little blue vest chopping some carrots to help with the communal. And you would know this to be Thistle Candleberry, who is a well-meaning bear who lives nearby and comes to town from time to time to fish. Good morrow, Dolly.
Good morning, Mr. Candleberry.
It's a beautiful day. It's a beautiful day.
It's always a beautiful day. And as she shuffles out of the closet, it's very clear she doesn't really have bones. She's just kind of full of what you presume is fluff. So she has a very shambling gait. And she staggers out and then she stops and remembers, and she kind of pats the top of her head, and you see the burlap that makes her is kind of unstitched at the top and kind of stands up a little jaggedly, like almost like hair. And she's like, oh, I have to do this for today. And she shambles back into the closet, and you hear just things crashing and throwing and being toppled over. Way more noise that should be in such a little closet. And she comes out and she's tying up the top of her head with a big white bow.
As you're going to finish that last knot, he throws a little like teaspoon, like a little silver cream spoon, as he'll do with you from time to time with acorns or pretty rocks, and try to get it into you really quick before that bow's tied. This morning, I think he misses, though. You're a little too fast for him, and he kind of shrugs. Like, you know, every day's the last day of the world if you're a fish when I'm around. You ever think about it that way?
No, I haven't. And she picks up the teaspoon from the floor and eats it.
And as you're chewing this lovely spoon, tastes a little like tea. You hear a slight crying, which isn't an uncommon thing lately. People have been having little breakdowns from time to time as the reality of what is upon the world impacts them. You hear it coming from the back, more of the hidden kitchen area where more of the skinning and the cleaning of things take place. You'll, looking around, have recognized that Panson, she is a large horned creature of some sort. It's not a fawn, but a relative of, who's been staying here and running the kitchen a little while, is not visible, and they're usually the one out here cutting the carrots in the morning.
Where's Panson?
She's having a cry in the kitchen. I'm trying to help out.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, I just came in to get some coffee and go fishing, and there was no one cutting carrots. And, you know, if you care at all, you'll be a friend and cut carrots.
Yeah. Okay. I got just the thing. Give me a second. And, again, jumps back into the closet, comes back, watering can in hand, and she tumbles out the door, and she would consider it very dutifully, very quickly, watering all of the flowers in the pots at the front of the store. She's just splashing water everywhere. And at the same time, she's picking a few flowers.
You, before the camera pans away as your eye is caught by the light in a different direction, while you're doing the flowers, you find a small misplaced or dropped item, one of your favorite things to do, to find the things that people have lost. It's a tiny little doll the size of a pine cone with little geodes for eyes. Very simple, very handmade, but beautifully preserved. Like somebody took very good care of this doll with geode for eyes, and it appears you've watered it a little.
Oh, and and Dolly was just thinking, getting flowers for pants on, getting flowers for pants on, getting flowers for pants on, and finds this doll that and just stares into its little eyes with her black button eyes.
And our story pulls back and hovers over this little makeshift community. Not far from the swamp, but hidden from view, you'll find a path through a patch of nasty thorns or of hungry trees, of lovely and perfect honeysuckles. And at the end of that path, you'll see an old house, and you could not say for sure whether or not it was built upon the swamp or if it grew from its very depths. We would have to knock on this door, for those laws are as old as the earth. Old Gran, what do we see when we see you, and how is Old Gran spending this final and single morning?
Yes, Old Gran is an ancient, wizened woman, huge, wrinkled, heaving, sagging bosom, draped in basically a black tent of like rags. Her gray, wiry hair is in all directions, and she has a wide, toothy grin that is inviting, but it gives you pause. And she is rummaging around her little cottage, moving jars of weird preserved animals and organs? Who knows? But she's going around rifling through, and suddenly she's like, yes. And she pulls back an old dusty tapestry from the wall, like with that memory popping into her brain. And she opens a hidden cupboard and reaches in and pulls out an old bottle and a long silver necklace with a massive emerald and black onyx cabacons all around it, maintained in like beautiful silver filigree. And she puts that necklace over her neck and head with a moment of like pensive introspection, takes the bottle, and then she sort of ambles her way out the door, sits on a log to stare at the sun coming up as she uncorks and starts to drink.
When she looks at this emerald, does it instigate an emotion, a memory, or is it like more today's the day to bust out the good jewelry?
I think it's a combination, a complicated, like, weight of memories past and a determined look at what she can do. I think she's a stubborn old witch who just is refusing to let go in every sense of that word.
And almost as if the universe heard that desire of their heart to not let go, Mr. and Mrs. Dratzy, two very old forest gnomes that have sought out your counsel multiple times, come wandering not from the town but from the wood, for they live deeper in. Little tiny gnomes, little mushrooms bursting around them, little halo of pollen. They're holding their little hands around 2.5 feet tall, ancient and in love every day of their multiple 100-year lives. And they wander up. Good morning, Gran. Last morning.
We'll see about that. Give it time.
And they have one batch of rat muffins, as was agreed upon, for a single vial of a long rest.
Ah, yes.
One moment, and she'll take another swig of her bottle, recork it, and then she will amble her way back into the cottage. You'll hear scrabbling around, jars moving, and then,
yes.
And then she'll come out. Here.
When you come out, you catch them just kind of slow waltzing, like just adoring each other and holding these muffins for you. It's been so good to know you. And Mrs. Dratzy comes up and tries to give you like a hug on the side of your leg. She's very small.
Try. You know, we can still try until the end is the end. There's no reason to say goodbye yet.
Here, give me those muffins.
She also, the wife does not speak much. She's much older than the male one, and pulls out a little acorn and puts it into your palm and just pats your palm.
Thank you. Lovely. I
And
can hear its soul.
she like laughs and pretends to play a little fiddle, as he just adores her in front of your small little cottage before they wander back into the wood, holding hands and him laughing audibly as they go to see the end
It would
together.
have been nice to bottle that.
You know, you never had that same example of watching an older couple around you be deeply in love. It was a different time back then. Survival was a little more important than adoration. But you do remember your grandmother and grandfather,
Yes.
especially on a morning like today, probably.
Yeah, and she pauses for a moment, thinks about that, and moves on, takes another swig of her bottle, recorks it, and probably, I don't know, goes off on her way.
Do you think she'd have any final day deliveries? Are there other people in town seeking, I've always wanted to turn into an eagle. Today seems like the day to do it. And do you have those types of services you offer?
Usually people come to her, but maybe for once, she is feeling generous.
There will be a communal meal this morning and at lunch, and they're going to be eating all day, the people that are staying there.
Then she'll ponder about that, and she'll go inside, grab an armful of different vials and powders and put them in her side satchel, cackle to herself, and just walk her way to town.
And we fly away, watching from above the waddle of Gran in one direction and the little shadow of Mr. and Mrs. Dratzy, deeply in love, going deep into the woods. Not far from there, we see a small tree with a hollow the size of a dragon's heart in it. Normally, we would knock to avoid being rude, but today's a special day, so we'll approach quietly and listen. Marlo, what do we see when we see you, and how is Marlo spending this final and single morning?
You would see what at first you might take for a young child, but upon closer look, you would see anything resembling hair has been replaced by a tangle of moss and weeds. Milo's skin has turned various shades of green and bubbling with odd purple mushrooms and other such fungi. Their eyes are pools of kind of an oil slick black, kind of furrowed into a concerned scowl. He has a line of beetles along the edge of the hollow of the tree. And he's just taking in the morning's news. He doesn't fully understand what an ending means, but he does understand that everyone's real sad. And I guess he's just looking for some advice if there's anyone nearby.
Beetles have always been bad at advice. You're not really exactly sure why. There's just not a huge range of opinion, and they all have that same haircut. But while you're interacting with the beetles, complaining about, man, this beetle traffic in the morning is horrible, you see out of the corner of your eye a cocoon that you didn't think would be ready in time. A little crack begins, and all the beetles turn and pull out little, fake camera stones that they use and are trying to capture this moment from their beetle traffic as you see a single, insect leg start to come out of this wee little cocoon.
What? He's early.
Struggling. You can see the struggle, like the push and the pull of the cocoon versus this new process.
I'm gonna just kind of not touch it, but just cup my hands around it and just kind of like whisper little sweet nothings to it. Like, you can do it. Come on, you got it.
You hear a little, I can do it. And a beautiful yellow and blue butterfly whoosh,
Wow.
wings fall out, dripping this strange birthing liquid on the bottom of your little stump. But, you can clean that up tomorrow. As it's there shaking itself, it looks at you and like, I'm here.
You're here.
Is it good that I'm here?
I don't know, but you're very lovely.
Oh, do you think it'll be kind to me?
I think some things might be, others might not.
Whoosh. Instantly knowing to fly. The beetles all, Mom, look, and you hear it and see. Well, you hear it because it's just saying, I'm fine. I'll be okay. As it's going through, echoing your exact tones, as butterflies tend to do. And as you're watching the town kind of wake up across the way from you, you see one lone pilgrim begin to head down that single path into the Forbidden Wood with no fanfare that usually comes with it, no sad goodbyes, just going on his own.
Hmm. I'm gonna grab my little satchel and scamper after him.
Oh, he's got a staff. It's a nice staff, definitely a carved one. If you got close enough, you might even see at the bottom the story that begins, ends at the top with a lone man with a staff going down a road into the wood. And you just hear him kind of whispering to himself, kind of talking out loud, but also in awe of the beauty he's about to walk into. The beginning of the Forbidden Forest is lovely. It's very fey with little sparkles of light and purple and blue flowers moving around. The little hustle and bustle of animals in the underbrush, some with important business to do. It is a lovely, thriving place, and he's talking and muttering things fairly quietly as he's entering into it.
I think there's kind of a line that I never cross where I have a little stump that I hide in to watch them go. And I just hold up one of my little beetle friends so they can see too. What do you think's on the other side over there?
And as he walks slightly down the trail where he will soon be out of your view, you just hear a, I'm here. Is it good that I'm here? Will it be kind to me? As he disappears, you see a lone orange handkerchief maybe in the path that fell out of his pocket or was purposely dropped. Who knows? But if you're looking for a souvenir, there's one right there. The beetle pointed.
Dolly will love this, and I'll go grab it.
Yeah, it's lovely hand dyed. It has an embroidered little rune for what would represent spring. You can see it's been done with care. And as you, with your little retinue of beetles, are staring at this precious token amongst a world of soon-to-be abandoned tokens, our view leaves once again. No one notices the smallest things, the gentle creations, but if you were watching from more center to the community, you would find that the light cutting through the branches of a peculiar and special tree is absolutely perfectly painted across the water. The spades of shadow between the small spectrals of light are beautiful and as unique as snowflakes. Patience is like breathing for creatures as old as this, sculpting light, knowing soil. Tithoria, what do we see when we see you, and what is Tithoria choosing to do on this last and final morning?
For once, I chose to sleep. Not a common activity, quite boring. But I slept last night because I wanted to have final morning, a wake up that I never experienced. And so the camera would show a tree very similar to a bald cypress in a swampy, moist soil. Bark so dark it's almost black, and shining red and orange leaves. And there is a ripple from the trunk, like a mirroring of the water around it. And Tithoria emerges from it, twisting at a very odd angle and stretching one of the first good morning stretches she's ever had, before settling half of her body inside, half of her body out of the tree, and looking around.
Did Tithoria dream?
I believe she did.
Your roots have gone so deep through the roots of others that I would say before anyone else, even Ol Grans in this town, knew exactly when tragedy had begun, you had felt the tremors of it on the other side of the planet as you dreamt. As your roots touch the deeper swamp roots that go down to the center of the earth, you wake up knowing that end is approaching as certainly as the dusk line when the sun sets. The others might still have hope, but you know that wasn't all your dream was about. There's other meadows, other places with wind going through branches you're not familiar with. Half memories from a different life. What does Tithoria like to do in mornings since she doesn't get them very often?
I take my job very seriously. I bear witness, and I record everything that changes around me, the things that come and go. I write it on the trees around me and down in the soil and on the leaves that fly away to other places that might find the record. I don't know what else to do. I don't visit people. People come to me. So I think I just take up a handful of muck and take the rest of my body outside of my sanctuary and begin painting on top of the water what I see around me.
And of all the reoccurring characters who have entered into your documentation lately, I would say the one that's about to approach is seen in a fairly decent light as far as humans go. His name is Hockle. He's a bit of a cleric that somehow got stuck here and decided that this place could use a cleric. Then later he found out nobody who's chosen to come die in the Forbidden Forest really cares about religion. They've already sort of chosen their path. So he decided just to stay. And now he's a dear part of the community, serves people, very good at medicine, seems to just want people to be comfortable those final few steps, and has changed over the last couple years. He's probably in a human equivalent, still only like 24. He's a fairly young for being this far away from everything. He's like, morning. Just getting water. I wanted to say morning.
Good morning, child.
What do you think? Is it? Do you think it's really today? I mean, they're all saying it, but you would know, right?
I'm going to approach him closer than I've ever gotten to him before. And I'm going to brush off his shoulders and just the front of his thing. And little green vines pop out of the fabric of his clothes. And then I
Finest suit.
tap the bottom of his chin and say, "This is our final day."
And you would see an element of slight wisdom on Huckle's face, having gone through that early struggle with abandoning an aspect of how one was raised when they realized it wasn't meant for them. It wasn't a good fit. And he puts on a brave face, like, in my beginning of my life, I felt like I was too earthly to be any spiritual good. And then I learned I was far too spiritual to be any earthly good. And there was a lot more I needed to learn. I was hoping to be better than this at the end. You know, a little more full. But I'm happy to have met you.
My story has been better with you in it.
Big sigh. You would almost say a blush. If it's possible for a cleric to have a crush on a tree, I'd say it is, especially if he was branching out. And he's going to offer you this little bag, like just a little canvas, simple bag. Feels kind of solid, as though it's stuffed very full. Beautiful, broken down fertilizer. Absolute dark, gorgeous, nutrient-filled soil that he's like, I spent the whole last year making that in my compost garden. What do you think? Is it close?
It is as close as you could possibly get.
Well, a lot of people want me to write letters for them today that they're never gonna really send, but I think it'll be a good form. I think it'll be healing. So I'm gonna go do that. If you wander indoors, and he kind of laughs, knowing you never wander indoors, I could write a letter for you if you have any other people in your family tree. Sorry.
Thank you for the offer. I there is an awkwardness to my voice that wasn't there. I would have you write a letter for me, but I would not know where to send it. It is the thought.
And again, just the sigh, a little overwhelmed with how pleasant this exchange is, but then also remembering what's happening and what this day will be. So I think he means to say a little more and then thinks he's already kind of exposing himself too much today everywhere he goes. Like he's just emotionally raw. But he also doesn't have family here. He's also all by himself.
Huckle, before you leave.
Yes.
You, with the profession you chose, I take it you like stories, especially the heroic kind.
I don't know about heroic. I really love a story where somebody learns a lesson, but I guess that could make one more brave. I like parables, you know. Don't chase the wolves if you don't want to steal grandmother's jam. Like I love those old stories.
I laugh, and it doesn't sound like laughter. It sounds like wind through the leaves. And I gesture around me. This is the end of your story is today. And if it is the end, then you were the hero, and you grew to exactly the place you were supposed to. Just good enough.
It's kicking the ground a little, like on a root, and then realizes it could be someone you know, and like stops really quickly. He's like, I need to go, but thank you, and may all your travels be sure and soft. And having called him a hero, he picks up like a perfect little stick and he's like sword fighting his way back to the tavern area. There's people out and about, there's folks just walking back and forth, but now all of you are also out and about. And I would say, as more of the permanent residents of this place, it would be fairly easy for everyone to realize that Tithoria has left their tree, which is fairly rare, and Old Grans has left their cottage to come into town, which is also fairly rare. Uh, Dolly and Marlo, tend to be out and about. Does anyone see someone else?
I want to go find Dolly to give her this cool handkerchief I found.
I'd say you easily find Dolly, probably, if you're within the main communal area. You guys have lived here a while.
You do find Dolly. Dolly's outside of the main building, on what's sort of a bench. And she's with her little stumpy, almost mitten-like hands. She's like furiously trying to make a flower crown out of the flowers she plucked, and doing not a great job.
She needs thumbs.
She's got thumbs. They're just really short and also made of burlap, so she doesn't have a lot of dexterity, but she's trying. And sitting next to her on the bench is the little pinecone doll, or
About the size of a pine cone.
the size of a pinecone.
You can call her the pine cone doll, though. She
Yeah.
loves that.
And
Marlo gets a little more shy, kind of coming in where crowds of people are, but once he sees you, just kind of like comes scurrying up. Dolly,
Marlo!
what are you doing?
Pansum was crying some tears, and I didn't want that on this day, so I'm making her a flower crown.
and I hold up the very kind of janky looking flower crown.
Oh, do you need help? Oh, maybe this. And I'll give her the handkerchief.
Ooh. Oh, Pansum doesn't like orange.
They don't.
I don't like orange. I like it though, and
I'll also kind of half shove, half tie that into the top of my head.
Need some thumbs.
you know what? Today I think I could use some thumbs. Do you think you could add to this?
And I'll kind of offer you the flower crown.
I'll start pulling strands of moss from my hair to help kind of tie it all together. There you go.
Marlo, you always know what to do.
In this moment, does Old Gran or Tithoria see them, or do they see each other?
I don't know. I think at this point, Old Gran is like shambling from house to house, giving out her gifts. Some of them questionably gifts, more like curses. But I think she is impossible to miss as she's like waddling her way around the what I assume are like rickety wooden pathways down alleys and streets.
And it's not the most pleasant of walk. You've run into some folks very excited for today, more of a like party hardy day. Others, let's say they're not bachelors or bachelorettes. There's people they worry about, and people who won't have the future they wish they could have, who are heartbroken, scared, somber, but all grateful for the aids you produce.
Yeah, I think for a lot of those folks, much like with the two gnomes, she will have calming drafts for them, just in case she fails to figure it out.
And one Their name is Francina. They're a tricky little pumpkin-headed, mischievous, cursed folk of some nature who lives underneath the stairs. They've ordered a little bottle to fly, one to breathe underwater, one to breathe in hot lava, and one to turn to stone. They're ready for everything.
Yes, all things come at a price. So, you get to pick one as a gift.
Just one.
One.
What if I
Yes.
give you a hand? They have like a pumpkin kind of vine-made hand, almost like the pumpkin in Wizard of Oz 2, pumpkin head. It's sort of made of the tusk of a pumpkin. Yeah, we'll call it the tusk of the pumpkin.
An exchange. Yes.
And I think her smile goes wide and her like 3 teeth, all of them in a different zip code and direction, are just like peeking out from her like thin cracking lips. What do you want for the second gift?
I think I'm gonna be responsible. I'll do the one to fly and the one to breathe underwater, because at least, that covers a lot of the world.
Yes.
And they just pop the hand out. At the end, you see little roots out of the forearm and maybe some dirt, as though the inside of their body is soil. And they just give it back and spit a little to water the new bud that's forming.
And she looks at it in her hand and then eats it.
It gives you the thumbs up as it's going down. Like, they're
Delicious.
much better cooked, you know.
It's not about the taste.
And she'll ruffle in her bag, jars clanking, and
1, 2. Here.
Granny, it's been a pleasure. I always have to hand it to you.
Likewise.
They go back under the stairs, just shut the door, like, while staring out.
I think
Did you
she
hear Graham?
she stares a little hungrily.
Who said my name? Ah! How are you, Marlo?
Kind of just shrink back a little bit. Good day to you, Gran.
Do you expect it to end like everyone else?
Well, I don't know. Do you?
Not if I can do something about it. We'll see. And you, Dolly?
And she's just waving. Dolly doesn't know to be scared of old Gran. She's like, "Good morning, old Gran."
How are you this morning?
I'm great. We made a flower crown.
Beautiful. Here.
And she'll, I think, reach into her big ol' saggy bosom and pull out a tiny white flower.
How about this?
And she'll place it in the center.
Yes.
It looks very good.
Wow, it's beautiful. Where'd you find it?
Oh, in the woods. Don't eat that one. It's toxic.
I'll say, as Tithoria actually approaches outside of their sanctuary, they also agree that you should not eat that one.
Ah! A special day.
The tree.
I don't think I've ever seen her away from her spot. Wow.
Wow.
Tree?
Oh. I'm just gonna like hide behind Dolly, but like start looking for something to give the tree, like another flower.
Dolly's just in awe. Dolly doesn't usually get out to where the tree lives because it's kind of soggy out there. So that's amazing that she came to town.
Tithoria, do you greet them, or is it more of a, people are talking to me, and you just continue on your way?
I'm used to people talking to me. I've never come here. Ever.
It's not as
So
pretty.
it is beautiful, isn't it? In this structured but also kind of haphazard way.
You
I
can,
will.
as Tithoria is crossing into the space they're not usually, you feel the memories of these planks of wood. You feel the long gone forests that these were taken from, some by axe, some by fire. But these are forests that will never exist again. And you remember that there's been many last days for many creatures over all these centuries. What's another one?
I pass into the space and I'm heading over to Dolly. Dolly has the crown, correct? As I pass by Ol Gran, there is a reclining of the head and a very quiet grandmother. And
Harold!
then I get to Dolly and I say, "Is this for you?"
No, it's a gift for our friend Panson. She's kind of sad today.
You would know the name, Tithoria, from your note keeping. Yeah.
I will take it out of your hands if you allow me,
Oh
Dolly.
yeah.
And I will nestle it approximately where a forehead should be. And I close my eyes, and the leaves and the bark um, come out of me and create a structure that is not just like a floppy little flower crown. It is a structure of dark bark, and the vines are interwoven with red leaves. And then I will kind of snap it off of me and give it back to Dolly.
Oh, it was perfect before. Now it's even more perfect. This is gonna be
Mar-
great. I mean,
Marlo's
thank you. Sorry, I know she never comes to town. I know.
You're welcome, child.
Marlo's
Oh,
just gonna reach around and touch the tree.
What happens when a strange sprite like little creature and an ancient dryad touch?
I act as though I haven't noticed. I know how nervous Marlo can be. So it is very much like, don't look at the cat who's sniffing you, you know?
Hmm, hmm.
Uh, um, so I just keep my eyes on Dolly and I nod and I smile. And um, I will make the bark, like where she touches, it's going to go like whoop, like inwards as though it's a little bit jelly-like, even though it's not. Just I'm just being silly in a weird tree way.
Hmm.
Weird.
Marlo, what did you do?
I leave like a little, almost like a palm print, but it's moss.
And in this space, there's usually only about 16 people-ish at a time tend to exist around here. It's closer to like the 40s right now. People have been showing up a lot more lately. Anyone with a slight mystical inclination has heard the call. They're all on board now that it's the end with going to live in weird, magical, scary places. But you all have had a different time here. There's some of them, like the very large bear friend and whatnot, that you're on friendly terms with, but they live mortal lives. They're short. They sometimes you just can't find them for a few days and you realize they died years ago. Time just passes a little differently for all of you. So, in the midst of this kind of rotating chaos, the four of you at least have consistency as a consistency, if anything. But on this lovely day, this final and single day, what do all of you want to do your final day here? I'm sure you have a crown you would like to give, but are you wanting to help these pilgrims on some noble path? Or are you wanting to do the classic traditions you've done here in the past? You could paddle out into the swamp to never return. You can walk into the forbidden wood. You could go home and read a book until the skies fall. Where do all of your hearts take you today? As one or in separate chapters?
Dolly would want to give that crown to Panson, but then has some other things to do. So
Yeah. What about you, Old Gran?
I think old Gran is going to continue giving out some gifts, and when she is satisfied, she wants to go into the woods or the swamp to figure out where the end is coming from and see what she can do about it, if anything.
And I'm going to be so bold to assume that all of your characters would have probably discussed this leading up to today. This wasn't dawned at the last minute. Granny had a feeling a long time ago. Tithoria also the same. Everyone else took a little bit longer, but it was like anytime you did any sort of oracle work, it was just ending, ending, ending. You could not see past a certain point. So I'd say, especially if Granny was very adamant, like I'm going into those woods or I'm going into that swamp, that all of you would have discussed possibly a final and only adventure together, shirking your duties at the shrine of sorts for the day.
I think even though Marlo's kind of afraid of Gran, he also thinks she's probably the smartest person in the universe, and so desperately curious to find out what's in the forest, would for sure want to help with whatever they're gonna do.
Bay around and find out.
Dolly also thinks Old Gran is the smartest person uh anywhere ever, obviously. Um and once she's finished, she's also gonna go into the woods.
Do you give the crown to Panson? Is that like the first task on the list?
Yes.
Is everyone going to give a gift together? Because that would just be a very adorable picture. Awkward, but adorable. Or is Granny going to continue delivering her things and you all will reconnect later?
Yeah, I think old Gran's gonna mosey.
Deal. Who is going to the crown delivery?
I'm going to follow grandmother.
Probably a lot easier to move around outdoors than enter into buildings for Tithoria, too. It would be very suffocating, I would assume. Boxes made of dead trees.
A tree inside of a tree is one thing, but this is too much.
As you both wander more down a trail, I'll say Dolly and Marlo take this crown back into the space, both very small. More strange Oliver Twist creations of this community than anything else is Dolly and Marlo. And you still do not see Panson, but somebody just points to the back door, still to the kitchen area. You would also know that's kind of her personal space. She maybe lives back there also. She's only been here a few months.
As Dolly always does whenever she goes anywhere, she just like busts through the door, just like a little wrecking ball.
I'm just like peeking through the doorway behind you.
And you see her in a wedding dress of sorts. Makeup smeared from crying, like an old hope chest opened, and like old letters, and maybe a baby blanket, and all those things. And holding a torn like veil that you can see she's just been crying into. It's the last piece that there is no completion for. That's what you find when you Dolly stumble into this space.
It's on.
Hey, Hi, Dolly. Good morning. Sorry. Oh, I should have been out there already, shouldn't I?
No, no. It's a very good morning, and you can do whatever you want.
And she kind of waddles over, very poorly hiding the crown behind her back. It's like,
Today is not a day to be sad because it's a good morning. And we all made you this.
and then I present her with the crown.
At she looks up and sees like Marlo's head around the door, and notices, I'd say, the wood of Tithoria, which takes her aback a little bit.
And a touch of the telltale magic from Gran.
You all made why? What did I do to earn such a gift on today of all days?
You don't have to
What
earn
other
it.
day is there?
She kind of looks at Marlo at that and smiles. I just thought I'd have more time, There's just some things I just wish I would have done maybe a little sooner.
Like what?
She looks at her own, wedding dress unused and takes the crown and puts it on. She's like, become an evil empress to reign over all I see. And just walks past both of you into the cafeteria, drying her eyes and looking upon her community, this group of lost pilgrims at the end of the earth who are pulling out little elements of groceries, of food, of rations, and they're creating a final feast day where this maybe isn't even found family as much as it's just found, but they're going to celebrate and they're going to enjoy it together. And she has this strength in her step where the crown sits right and it feels right. And maybe at one point this was a dress that never got used, but now it's only fitting for a queen. And she is going to oversee their holiday of this holy day majestically and regal, and not crying about what could have been, but only what she is now, which is beautiful and crowned. As you and Marlo, Dolly and Marlo, kind of watch from this open space, about what, 2 feet? 2 feet tall? Pretty
Yeah.
small? Just Marlo's maybe elbow on Dolly, so Dolly keeps falling over. But you've helped her today. You didn't even know it was wrong, and you made the perfect thing. And destiny's like that sometimes. Dolly's found sometimes you just have to reach inside, and whatever you pull out might be exactly what you needed.
And I do, before we go, because I am the janitor, I do kind of touch up back here and I put the things away and I go to close the chest just so
Yes.
everything's in order.
She did leave a little bit of a mess.
Yes.
Rude.
And I do, just from the scraps of her veil, I do find a piece of lace. And I take that as well. And I add that
Only
along.
fair. As Marlo's just watching, kind of nodding, you're doing great without your thumbs this time. They're waiting to maybe help. We go outside of the space just in time to hear Panson being like, and you start chopping the wood. Don't you backtalk me, as she's taking over the feast. And we see Ol Grans down a little trail amongst the little places people live with this very different movement comparison of Tithoria and Grans moving down a trail. It almost doesn't seem like those two movements should exist in one space, but they do. What is the relationship between you two like?
At least I think when we've delivered all of the gifts to town, Ol Grans will pause.
Little tree,
I owe you.
and the wood.
And she'll reach into her sleeves and pull out a bone.
I must pay my price, like everyone. Here.
There's the rustle of rustle of leaves, laughter. Why do you think I came to town?
I wondered. I did not want to presume. I hope that is enough.
Oh, yes.
Are you sure it'll be enough, Thoria?
For the first time ever, it doesn't matter. The scales will never be balanced again. Why not start now?
I think for Granny to hear that would be almost one of those whose life involves a lot of scales and trades and deals. The fact that all those could just tip. How's Granny feel about it? Is she ready? Like, is she ready to kick the thing over, or is she loves what she does?
I think it's arresting because she understands at a fundamental level that means that most likely there is nothing she can do to fix any of this. And for the first time in her incredibly long life, she's at a loss for words and doesn't understand how to fix something.
Don't make a vial for that.
No.
Either
I
way, a price must be paid.
I thought you had a plan. Do you?
I do. Yes,
She touches the necklace.
do. But it is worrisome that the scales must not need be paid attention to at this point. We will see.
I get really close to Ol Grans and I lean in and in the softest voice filled with the shifting and expanding of wood under pressure, I say, "Grandmother, I'm frightened."
These words have never left her lips before.
So am I.
Elsewhere with those words, things shift. As simply as a ripple on one coast creates a wave on the other. Somewhere unseen from both of you, from this whole village, Ol Grans and fear cracks through like ancient law. Ancient formations of this world. There's the Ol Grans, there's the wizened old wizard, there's the ancient tree, there's the first caves, and to be the first of the original coding of this place, announcing fear. Maybe the end had already begun, or maybe that was the signal for it to begin. As Granny's fear breaks open one of these seals and destiny descends upon you all in your little thumbless doll form, or whether you can pay attention to the traffic of beetles, whether you break crowns out of your head as a gift, or whether you're full of so much life that you don't know how to let go. All of you find each other again in the middle of the town, having delivered many things to a Vashitana, an old herbalist that was happy for the end, having lost her family a long time ago, and very, very excited to reunite with them, and it's been a pleasure and an honor. And then some sadder, younger folks who are deeply in love and they don't understand, and parents who wished for more things for the ones they love. It's a heavy day, even with the crown, even with some joy. No one can hold anyone accountable. There's no tomorrow. Feel what you're going to feel, but everything is heavy everywhere you go. And all of you kind of reconvene at that place where the path from the little town meets the path from Granny's village and the path into the wood at this, the crossroad of Fen. You all see each other. Did anyone bring like a little bundle? Did people pack? Do you have cute little, on a stick, picnic lunches? Or is this just leave as you arrived.
After we gave Penson the crown, I think Dolly kind of shoved Marlo into the building and was like, "Go eat," and shoved you into that to go try to taste everything. And then she did her chores. And she swept the front of the store and she cleaned the windows and just tidied up, wiped down everything. It's her doing her best, but it's sloppy. It always is. But her chore list done because she's done it every day since she's been here, and it's why not do it today? And so everything looks shipshape to Dolly. And then when she's done with that, she does meet up with everyone. She does have a stick with a bundle, but the bundle is just the pinecone doll, and she's kind of adjusted so the doll's peeking out so she can see what's happening as well.
That is perfect. And a doll that kind of flops around carrying a stick must be just such a fun, like, fly fishing
Yeah.
maneuver. And so I'll say, as you all kind of convene in this place, a few changes that have been noticed as a few hours go by. It's not late in the day, but a few hours. The swamp level looks strange, like it's a few feet lower than normal. You see some what's usually normal, beautiful top layer moss and algae is slightly concaved and like going down the edges of the bank and looks a little more gross, a little more flies, as though the tides are just drastically changing more than they normally do. If one were to go peek and look, you'd see the little pinprick of old items that people had thrown into the swamp as a payment, a tithe, a gift before heading into the woods. You'd see like little picture frames and old books. It looks like a baby's blanket and like a cane, an umbrella, things that mattered to people. They almost look vulgar being visible, like these were supposed to be hidden. These are not meant to have flies and stench on them. It makes the place seem a little different when you all find each other slightly uneasy. You've never seen the swamp like this.
There's a physical change to me. The red leaves, it's almost like a sepia filter is put over me. And I'm gonna take a second and I'll gesture to the others, like, hold one moment. And I go from looking at as humanoid as I can to, in the blink of an eye, being a tree. And they can see my feet just crack and break open and my roots dig down deep. And I would like to take a second to figure out where's the water? Did it go in the direction that we're going to go? Where is it? Get back here.
Deal. We're gonna do our first die roll. I'm gonna say this isn't very difficult for you, being a creature with roots, but there is an element of difficulty to find out the information you're looking for. So I'm gonna say you only need to roll a 12. So if you want to be like, hey, I'll spend 12 of my points on this roll, you automatically succeed, but those 12 are gone. Or you can say, I'll spend like 5, and then you only have to roll up to a 7, but you have to announce it before you roll. Or you can just flat roll and test the fates.
I'm gonna spend 5 points. Let me mark them off now so I don't forget. I'm gonna spend 5 dream points.
Deal. You only have to roll a 7 or higher, and
Okay.
it'll definitely succeed.
Oh, that's a 9 on the die.
Congratulations. Down to the center of the earth where the old books are, where the unreadable books of stone and lava and heat and space are, you check into old acquaintances for rumors long ago. Other roots underneath the sea, deep coral, water plants. This circuit of information goes all the way back. A community. You're not asking for a favor, they're yourself as well. And you all breathe the same water, and you feel the salt of the sea as you move with their mind. The ocean, the very middle of the ocean, bulks with water. It swells with water. Vertical and horizontal, there is a mass that is forming in the middle of the sea, not far from this swamp or these woods. And that is what is pulling the water from your own shores. And you hear all of these different kelp plants and trees and forests past you that are using your roots for information. All of them just, oh no, oh no, oh no, oh no, oh no, as they all see at once and realize something has actually physically begun.
Yep. I don't know how long you wait for me there, but I, again, in just sort of a blinking of your eyes, I'm back to bipedal.
Do you tell them what you see, or does Tithoria hold that close?
I don't think it would occur to me to tell them unless they ask. I'm not gonna hide the information, but it was more just like me being like, hold on a second, I want to check something. Okay, cool.
I think Ol Grans will pause and go,
Is all well?
The water gesture is. I was worried it was deeper into the swamp, might make our path harder, but it is
Oh.
past. It's out in the ocean. The ocean is. I just make the gesture of somebody like holding something because I don't have the words to explain what is happening. So I'm just saying, like, the ocean has. It has the water.
Strange.
And I just waddle over and I'm like, sounds like the water went home.
What? Oh, I reach down and run my fingers through the little boop of like hair that you have, as though you might like pat a child on the head. And I say, "What? Water is at home, everywhere."
Oh, I always thought, it was either in the sky or on the land or back into the ocean, and that's where most of the water is. So I figured it would all want to be together.
And Dolly, as a lost doll, the phrase "water is at home everywhere." Shall we all be so lucky? But maybe today's the day. You were dropped a long time ago. If any day was the day to be picked back up, it would have to be today. And as you all gather there looking into the forbidden wood with that sudden like vision kind of pulsating, all the beautiful flowers bursting out with little lights, little hummingbirds, the sounds, no visible folks walking down it, just empty and beautiful and terrifying and waiting. you see in front of you the entrance to the Forbidden Wood, long kept safe, never entered, and none have ever returned. How are you going to know where to go? There is a path, but it just turns into the woods after a point. This isn't tread by that many feet. Do you have a map? Do you have a compass of sorts?
So, Old Gran sort of steps towards the wood and lifts the emeralds on her necklace. And I think she chants something low that no one else can hear. And the emerald glows and starts to beam in the direction they need to go. But I'm guessing maybe that needs a roll?
Yeah, that will be a roll. It won't be a hard one. It will be over a 5 though, because there's a chance of failure. But this is Granny using a well-kept item.
Yeah, and I think I'm gonna spend 2 points to get it down to 3, a good magic number.
Deal.
11.
Down the woods, showing a perfect line. And as you watch like the edge of it, Grans kind of reverts into a memory involving the emerald, and that line becomes a signature. Just letters tracing through the air. Suddenly you're looking at an open book as a much younger creature in a cabin, a warm, well-lit cabin, as you see 2 older figures just buzzing themselves around the house while you're looking at this book, knowing something's expected of you.
And I think looking at the book, looking up, looking down, looking up, she focuses really hard. And nothing happens.
And both of them have their backs to you. It's almost this faceless, weird vision where if they turn, it's a little blurry. You can't make it out. But when nothing happens, the more male-seeming one turns, and you see the friendly visage of a grandfather, but a little different. The smile's a little sharper than you remember it being. There's a little more of a sinister, not grandpa vibe to this version of your grandfather as you're looking through memory, hundreds of years of memory. Like, you know, it always costs to cast, right? Life must be given to be put somewhere else. You know that's how it works, right? We've taught you that's how it works.
Yes. Yes, you have. I know.
It's all right, darling. You just have to sign it. You can trust your old grandmother and I. And you see little, like, ember, almost like coal flame behind his eyes that dies back down. It must have just been the light. It must have just been these long shadows.
And suddenly her voice is a lot younger. Yes, I know. It's just... What happens after?
After, we teach you magic forever. You just have to sign.
Like grandmother?
Even more magic than your grandmother.
And she reaches out tentatively and grabs the quill. And she pricks her finger and dabs the blood and scrawls an awkward name into the book.
Does Grans remember that name?
I think she does, but it's on the edge of her memory. It's
All
been
things
so long.
come at a cost. And that line where you're about to put your name just reverts back to this beam from your emerald down the woods. And you hear that grandfather's voice kind of fade into the back. You must effect to affect, and affect to effect, my love. Perfect. Sign it just like that. Hundreds, if not thousands of years into the future, you're holding this family heirloom as it guides your way.
And To get the stone to light, she pulls out a small dagger and just cuts and lets the blood drop onto the gem.
Everything hungers. The path is open to all of you. Dolly just flopping carefree in the wind. Marlo a little nervous, but finally invited on an adventure with Tithoria outside of her tree and Granny ready for the road. Do you all begin to head into the Forbidden Wood? With a last look, you see the settlement, the strange skeleton of a community you've tended to face after face after face for so many years, and so many little forgotten chapters and tragedies and joys. And you see it for one last time as you wander away from the watered flower beds and the well wiped tables and counters, the customers that Grans liked a little more than she'd admit to, and all of Tithoria's documents, all of this record keeping, to not be a witness of this place at the end, to see something new. The wood's open to all of you. There's no brambles lashing out to trip you. There's no dark monster prowling for your end. The time is yours.
I think Milo would stop at the line that they've never crossed and let everyone get a little further ahead before catching up.
Does Marlo second guess? Do they question following everyone, or is this just their taking it in?
I think Marlo has passed through an ending before, and the confusing thing for Marlo is that there was something else on the other side, and for a little creature that's afraid of most things, this is the one thing he's not afraid of. But it does feel like a significant moment to stop at the line, say goodbye to the beetles, and then catch up.
You see all the beetles stuck in traffic, going home for the day, and you remember for a moment the feeling of drowning. But not right now. You don't need to think about that right now, Marlo. You know how to push that away when you're not ready. All the little beetles wave their hands at you. You see a yellow and blue butterfly deciding to stay close to the beetles. They informed them that they didn't have much time, and you just hear them saying, will it be kind to me? As the beetles are like, it definitely will. It's like, well, why am I here? It's like, you're here for endless joy. As they're all deciding to be a family for the day, you trot down the trail after your friends, seeing little Dolly's silhouette with the elegant Tithoria and the very broad Ol Grans just a few yards down the trail from you. Dolly, what's on your mind?
Dolly is excited, maybe a little nervous. Dolly's thought about doing this. Dolly's thought about heading into the woods, but there was always so much to do in the town, and there's always some new people to talk to. There's always new things to find on the ground. And if Dolly's not finding them, who's going to find them? And so there was always something to do. But today is the last day. So if it's going to be any day, it's today.
Dolly, full of so many things, including hope of a kind, that if today's the end, let it be good. Ol Grans, Tithoria, are your thoughts anywhere particular at the beginning of this path?
You will see me walking close to the front, if not in front, since we saw the direction. There's little fear I have in this place. My fear lives somewhere else. So I am at the lead, and I am being very visceral about everything. Like I am dragging my feet through the wet soil and reaching my arms out and like practically just giving these big long strokes to the trees as we walk past. If there's a branch above me, I reach up and you do that thing where you kind of hit the branch as you walk underneath it. Um, this this place that I know about, have always known about, but have never gone into. I am living in this place as much as I can as I walk through it.
As Trithoria is interacting with these branches, you see these deep hanging, almost pale green and white moss from all these different limbs. As they're touching and drumming and hearing goodbye, you see it catch around their arms a little, their shoulders, starts to resemble a shawl, a cloak. As they step through these trees, their robe around them of this moss almost starts to form as hands like reaching for like one last goodbye. As they're moving, you take a piece with you. Ol Gran, I assume, would be watching all of this, but also understands what it's like to take other life with you wherever you go. You must effect to affect. And how do you feel in this space, Ol Gran, with this group that you maybe didn't expect to be at the end of your days?
Yeah, I think she's focused. I still holding the gem so it can like guide the way, kind of somewhere between a weapon and a torch. That's how she like holds it. And her like hunched round figure with this massive wide-brimmed hat, like way too tall for her body, like in sharp contrast to the round figure she cuts. I think that she's like leaning into the movement and sort of leading the way into the woods. Come, follow me. And there's some trepidation because there are dark mists in the distance, but nothing at this point is going to stop her except the end, unless she can stop it.
Eyes all across the span of myth and lore, you notice that something's happening in the wood. These are ancient secrets carved in secret places no one knows of: the old witch, the doll, the drowned boy, the tree. These are old prophecies, old mysteries that you walk on accident but with purpose. And there's eyes in places of this world you would never dare to look that are watching with affection and cheering you on, knowing that you are the harbinger of the night. The woods open to you, flowers, birds go by and try to drop little flower petals and seeds on some of you. Little pieces of fruit are left by squirrels and they run back with the underbrush. Possum brings Gran its favorite stick, this gnarled, beautiful stick with like a moss and algae on it, just because it loves it. The woods know of you as the keepers who have kept them safe for such a long time, and they're coming out and giving you these little tributes as you make your way.
I think if you look closely, as Ol Grans moving forward, those gifts that are left by the wood itself all wither just slightly, because the price has to come from somewhere.
Little squirrel runs up with this little peach that just, and he almost feels his hands become weak and drops it instantly, looking. And the wild of the wood understand that not everything needs to be understood to be sacred. So having given what they offered and having it take a little more than they intended, that's a blessing, not a curse. For truly their gift was abundant, and they see the Ol Gran of the wood wander off ahead of them, and they'll call themselves till their final days blessed because of it. Marlo, Dolly, Trithoria, Ol Gran, do you all have anything to say to each other, or are you just experiencing this path?
Dolly's definitely having to kind of hop behind everybody, just because her legs are so stumpy. So she's kind of going from spot to spot where Tithoria and Gran have gone. And Marlo was built for this, so I'm sure it's much easier being in the woods. And Doll is seeing, the offerings and the things getting left. But it's not the kind of lost thing she's used to. She's used to paper and letters and handkerchiefs and things people have made. And this is more organic, natural things. If Gran doesn't, she will take that very good stick, though.
It's a great stick, and
very good stick.
You can tell looking at it. Like, the gifts in town are of intent and affection. The gifts out here are out of a place of instinct and love versus emotion and love. And you can feel it when you see the occasional piece of fruit left behind. That mattered a whole lot to that creature for what is tomorrow. If not, that's what gets me there. And they're giving you their tomorrows as you're walking by. I do not need to be full. I have enough.
And Doll notices this, maybe not quite absorbing it, but she's also noticing, because the water has withdrawn so much, all the missing things and things left behind by the pilgrims who've come and gone, deep in the tree roots and covered in old mud. And those were things left behind, and she's feeling kind of strange about it.
And in the middle, clearing where you're able to make your way, every once in a while, you'll look and there'll be some big exposed tree situation. You'll see an accordion. You'll see a strange musical box. There'll be a favorite tea kettle. Some people dropped them out in front of the town. Others shed them like skin as they walked this final path. You see even little bits of clothes where people came in a certain way as they reached this place. It's a strange parade. It's a somber one, but it's probably the perfect parade for today.
I think Marlo at first would be so excited. He's never really even been anywhere but the swamp, and would pick up all these strange objects, play an accordion, blow through a strange clarinet. But after a while, noticing that Dolly has fallen behind, would probably circle back a little bit and just kind of scoop her onto his shoulder and just slow down to help her along.
The eyes notice, those unseen, unnamed eyes. The doll that was abandoned has now been picked up with her own doll in hand. And some distant, deep voice, time is nothing but a circle. As they are watching this through crystal balls, through pools of water, they are watching this as history comes to bear on such a strange little troop. Do you make your way?
I've always wanted to see what's at the end.
You've always wanted to see what's at the end. And at one point, you come into this clearing. You would stop here. It has a sense of you're stepping onto holy ground the moment you enter into this place. There's a circle of copper, silver, golden leaved trees, almost metallic looking, that make the perfect border around this place. One dark, dark stone tower rises in the middle. No door, no guards or anything. You see a simple staircase on the inside, all of stone. Out front of it, you see bones. A strange shaping of sun-bleached bones, as though body after hundreds of years came to this space and laid so specifically and held the body before them lovingly, tenderly, to make this strange shape that you can't really find any pattern in. It's too large. you're too small to the ground, but you can see that it stretches out across the front of this tower. You recognize the last form in it as one that walked by you earlier today and dropped a handkerchief. As he, not decomposed at all, but still and cold, is laying beside a perfect skeleton, holding its face next to his, legs intertwined, almost like lovers in like this gentle little sleep, passed away. But he was the last one who came from the town.
Is this tower what the necklace was pointing to?
It would appear to be. It almost as though it hits this grove and the necklace beam dissipates. So there's almost like a green haze in the air that comes straight out of your emerald here.
Then I think Ol Grans will let the necklace down and begin to inspect the space and the bones to find a pattern if there is one.
Roll me. This won't be a very difficult roll because it's a more of if you can or cannot. So let's just say you need to roll above a 10 or below a 10, and you can spend as much as 5 on this if you want.
I will spend 2.
Deal. So just above an 8.
I rolled a 19.
You see a pattern. You don't understand it yet, but it's almost one of those don't quote the old magic to me, I was there when it was written type moments where you're like, I know I forgot this. I know I forgot whatever this is. Something old stories in a cabin with a voice with eyes like embers. You remember old stories. You can't see it from here, but maybe from higher. Maybe from a tree, maybe from a tower, maybe from the top of a broom, one could see. You know there is a pattern.
Do I have a broom?
I'd say you have a broom.
Then I would like to pull out the broom. Then if I have it, it's got to be on like a, oh my God, a quiver. It's got to be like in a quiver, sticking out with the like bristles like out off to the side across her round back, like at like a 45-degree angle. And she'll just kind of reach her tiny little fat arms behind her, grab it, kick it, smack it a couple of times, shove it between her legs, and then
it used to go a lot faster than it does now. I'm sure it's the broom's fault. You are able to get to a decent enough height that you can see the grove, if not over the forest line. White bones, sun bleached, all these shapes. Resembles the closest thing would be a key. A massive 20-30 yard across key. Perfect shape. That would be the closest thing Granny would think it looks like. Buried in the ground.
Can she conjure an identical key that's person-sized?
Yeah, roll me over a 5. That's simple illusion magic.
I'm gonna spend 2 on that.
Do it.
8.
Yeah. You're up on the broom as it kind of bucks a little bit, and you're holding basically a perfect... And it almost, the illusion has this little pink tint to it because you know it's coming from the little wound on your finger. It's an illusion made of blood.
Good. And she'll shove that like into her cleavage, and then she'll fly back down.
I will say before you headed down, if you were to look at the top of the tower, it's almost like a strange open gazebo-y type top. It appears there's a round table with what looked to be a strange singular candle in the middle of it at the top of the tower.
Have I seen that candle before?
Ooh, this is just going to be luck on my part. You have not.
Interesting. And then she'll slowly go back down to ground level and meet with everyone else. We must go into the tower. The bones made a key shape. I've conjured it, and she'll show you all. See? We may be able to use this.
Okay, into the tower.
Wait, so all this time, all the pilgrims have been coming here to help make a key.
Apparently, yes. Unless we're missing some.
Must be important.
Well, it must be. I want to say while Gran flew up, I'm 2 feet tall. I'm very small. Just glancing through this weird interwoven shape of bones, do I see anything that reminds me of my pilgrim?
Oh, roll me a d20 and tell me exactly how much you'd be willing to spend on it without knowing what you're trying to hit.
I'd spend 5.
Deal. Give me a roll.
Nope, that's a nat 1. So that's a 6.
You look, and maybe it's just hard today, because all you keep catching is the eyes of your little Geo doll, like leaning against where you've dropped your knapsack as you look at the space, just staring at you, catching the sunlight. You hear the cackle of Granny in the air. But as of right now, you don't see anything that reminds you of what filled you before you were so full.
And it's almost I can't remember. It's been so long. Not even sure how long it's been.
I think Marlo would just kind of grab your hand, like, what are we looking for? Not realizing the significance of the moment, but excited to help you find what you've lost.
Oh, I don't really know. I don't think it's here. I think if it's anywhere, it'll be in the tower.
Want to go together?
Yes.
Tithoria, this space is stone. You see no wood on it whatsoever. How do you feel entering in these space? These trees here are different than what you're familiar with. These strange gold, silver, copper trees that make up this glade. Not like a different accent, but like a different language. You just don't communicate the way you do with other trees. But I would also say it doesn't give you any sense of distress.
I am actually more fine with going into a stone structure than I would be a wood structure. I will stay in the front unless anybody else wants to get ahead of me, and the first moment I can, I would put my hand on a stone and very respectfully nod and say, "Cousin."
Almost like touching something that lights up, a luminous. You touch the stone and you see these little glow ripples as though it was water trickling through this place. And a small burst of a root that resembles your wood starts going through the structure slowly, gripping it together, insisting it'll stand for another 1,000 years. Now that it has been touched, and it has waited for 1,000 years for Tithoria to come greet it. Eyes unseen and far away nod. It's almost time. As you make your way up this first tower, you all can make it up easy. It's not a strain. There's no monster in the darkness waiting to ambush you. Up at the top, it's a simple 4 to 6 person round stone table, little benches dug and carved into the stone. There's a candle in the middle that's this awkward, it appears to be wax, but it's this strange dark orange. Maybe there's honey in it, something of that sort. It remains unlit. There's nothing else really of interest up here. It's a very simple space, but you're extremely high up, and the view is world-changing. If you all look towards the swamp, you see far out into the ocean, miles and miles past the swamp, some dark, shadowy figure as high as the sun. And you'll remember Tithoria the ocean holding the water, it appears that that has only continued this entire time, and you see this strange shadowed, almost humanoid shape rising out of the sea, miles and miles away.
Who is that?
You're muted, Juicy. Ol Grans.
Do I have anything that could tell me what it might be? A book, maybe?
How much you willing to spend on it?
How much does it cost?
To know what that is, you'd have to hit 30. So it'd be a bare minimum of 10, and then you'd have to roll a 20.
Yeah.
Can we help?
You can all contribute points.
I will
Oh.
spend 10.
I'll offer 10 too, and just like a cold Old Grans hand.
As
I'm going to reach out my arm from where we are at the top of the tower, and it grows and grows and grows and grows and just grows unimaginably long until a seabird lands on it.
beautiful.
And through the branch, there is this communication where I want, what do you see? What have you been near that? What is that like? And hopefully I can get the information through the bird into me and to Gran.
Amazing. I'm going to say with Marlo's addition and Ol Grans to the dream stone soup of the day, you only have to roll above a 10 to hit 30, but I'll let you roll with advantage because of Tithoria making this moment where all the eyes are drawn here.
Okay. 1,
Beautiful.
8.
Oh, you don't know. That's so close. You, you look and you remember. Do you think you ever saw your grandmother eat anyone?
Of course.
Of course.
That's how I learned it.
You must take to give. You must consume to create. As you see that form out there, all you can think about is your grandfather saying that over and over to calm you when you saw such terrors. That this was part of the wood, this is part of the magic. For some reason, you can't shake that memory right now as you're staring at this massive force out over the sea.
Then old Gran will crawl her way back down the stairs and find the smallest bones she can in the key and start to crunch one by one by one. The littlest teeth, the tiniest shins. Crunch.
Marlo and Dolly kind of peeking over the edge of the top of the tower. And it's not like it would take a huge amount of time to get up or down. It's you watched Granny come out and do everything. Tithoria, does your wood grow back into you? Or does it break and fall?
Oh. It breaks off. There is nothing below us that I could destroy that would matter right now. So I just I'll look to Marlo and Dolly and just see if they have anything that can help me, anything that cuts or smashes.
And so Tithoria looks to the two of you while you see the back of Granny. Just you and hearing the sounds would assume she's doing what she's doing. At the same time, there's this massive vine growth off of Tithoria's body. There's this weird table, the candle, there's this massive shape in the distance. What do the wee ones of Dolly and Marlo do?
Dolly was definitely distracted by how high up they are. Just she's never been this high up anywhere and this close to the sky. And seeing Tithoria kind of gesturing for a tool for something, Dolly's like,
Oh, I might have something.
and she reaches in her little stubby hands, reaches them into her own mouth, and kind of digs around and rustles around, and you see the components that make her are definitely shifting around in there. And she pulls out it was a paperweight that was someone's. It's another geode.
Your doll notices.
She kind of pulls it out, and a little bit of fluff and a little bit of paper comes out with it. She's
I knew I'd seen one of these before. Here, can this help?
Yes, thank you, child. It is very like stark. This kind of soft-spoken, wind through the leaves, bark creaking sound. The way that she moves, and she takes this geode and just without hesitation and very brutally just smashes her own arm off as it tumbles over the edge of the tower.
Granny hears it land like maybe 20 feet away, just on the angle of the top of the tower. And as you're watching from the top, you also see water that's starting to make its way from the swamp, kind of go over the arm. It hasn't hit Granny yet, but and it's not a wave. It is like a small inch of water, something maybe starting to rise. Granny will be wet soon, but your arm lands on the ground, and suddenly this swamp just touches it instantly, claiming it as yet another thrown thing for the moment. Marlo, what are you doing during this space, watching this geode be given and the violence upon the limb?
I think it's like Marlo flinches away from the sound, and in doing so catches sight of the water and just kind of is drawn to it and walks to the edge of the space. And just kind of in a weird way starts making bubbles with his mouth, like little crabs underwater sometimes do. And the bubbles sometimes get bigger, and there's kind of a pearlescent purple to them. And they almost start to form like a little cocoon around his strange little body as he watches the water rise.
Gorgeous. Granny, you feel on your leg, your hips, however you're sitting, a little bit of water starting to rise around you. We're talking like an inch and a half. You're not in any way flooded, but suddenly the space is damp.
Then Granny will look around, assess, feel like that's as many bones as she's going to get. It is time to return to the tower, and she will stomp her way back up the stairs, heaving by the time she reaches the top, and turn her eye to that candle.
Beautiful scene as you come. You see Tithoria holding this geode out to Dolly, who has their head open, and little fluorescent moths are coming out as Marlo is basically forming like a spit cocoon around themselves while staring in the distance. And You wish you could stop and paint it. It would be the perfect end of the world scene, but that candle is drawing you. The closer you get, you can smell that this is certainly has honey in it, but honey from a different part of the world, maybe a different era of the world where the bees were as large as wagons in the sky.
She remembers being a child with bees like that before the forest went dark, when things were light. And she looks at this inverted like tableau, like a nightmare version of her childhood in front of her, and goes to the candle to see if there is anything she can do.
What is a thing she would like to do? She could easily light it, take it, break it. It appears to just be wax. It would be easy to slice in half, but it does have a little wick at the same time.
I think she cuts off a bit of hair and burns it with a snap.
Grandfather, what do I do?
You remember yourself like eating a cricket to cast a spell as a child. A little older, a neighborhood's pet maybe goes missing, but a bully never bothers you again. This isn't requiring anything of you. This is there to light. It's not offering a deal. It's not offering to trade anything. It is just there. And Granny's a little probably thrown off by that. Magic always takes and gives to receive. This is not asking anything.
What does it do?
What it must. All of you hear that.
Will I fail like you did?
Yes. And no.
And I guess she'll reach up slowly and snap her finger and light the candle.
Wave of arcana, but then reduced back to a normal purplish flame. Tithoria, you see this?
I had told her I was frightened earlier, and there is something about this that the non-existent stomach that I have just bottoms out. And I look at the thing we have no words for and no way of understanding, and the key and the candle and the water coming back to us, and I close my eyes and I wish. Life is a circle, and I am living proof that it doesn't end. There are little endings, but there's not big endings. The trees will die, but the forest will always be there. And even when it's not, it still comes back. This can't be it. And for all of the records that I've kept in the trees and in the water and on the leaves, my wish is that someone remembers.
How many points are you willing to spend on a wish, Tithoria?
All of them.
Roll me. How many points do you have at the moment?
Hold on. I have 45 points.
45. I will say no one else can help with this one. It's going to be 55 for this wish. So you just have to roll above or below a 10. Because this isn't to save you or anyone around you. This is for hope to not be in vain. So, are you prepared for that role?
Oof. I am. This has to be a small ending. This has to just be a small ending. If the stars are still here, if the stones are still here. Just someone don't forget us. I rolled an 18.
The form takes a step. A step that covers miles. It's so large. It passes through the clouds and it falls upon its shoulders like a shawl as it walks through. A hand as long as the Nile River, an arm reaches, and you see it go down into the trees near you. A hand as huge as a field, as a garden, pulling things. You see this massive hand go into the smallest little tips, pick up a little accordion, a little journal, a little diary, and you hear this voice, "Thank you, my children. You honor me." And you watch these items be lifted into the clouds, and the hands come down and pick more up. Another step. You can almost see it now. It shrinks as it approaches. That candle calling to it like the moon to a moth. You see a witch as large as a mountain. Seaweed and kelp making a dress, holding the ocean water. You see little pictures of whales and large sea creatures passing through its body as they're gathering all these items at the bottom of the swamp. Like, "Oh, thank you for thinking of me. It's been so long, my children." And they're gathering all these given up memories and stowing them within their body. But as they approach the tower, they become smaller. Not the size of you, maybe the size of the largest tree you've ever seen. But they are coming, their head crinkles forward. You see eyes so large, there's just lava and coal and rocks just burning in a way that'll never go out. A long, crooked nose made of ocean kelp and coral, big, crooked teeth, looking at Ol Grans as they eclipse the entire sky and stare at the four of you with this candle behind you. You see the waters rising outside of the tower as they've approached. They just look at you.
Is there anywhere I could use a key?
I will say, you holding that illusion, you watched the massive hand reaching down to all those skeletons while looking at you, as though they're also going to grab a key. But they're looking, I'd say, at Granny the closest.
Can I then walk to the edge of the tower and conjure lightning to blast the key apart?
You can certainly try. How many points are you willing to spend on this?
Does Dolly have something to say?
I was gonna say, at the same time, like while Gran is moving to get ready to cast a spell, Dolly kind of runs forward, and her head is still half open, and all the things that she's found and kept for who knows how long, she doesn't know. And she says, "It's you!"
Lightning building in Ol Grans' hand, and Dolly runs forward, all these little moths and
Just-
things.
I have so many things to show you.
Massive finger comes out from a different part of the arm and like lowers down next to you. Do you cast the lightning, Gran? Or do you attempt at least?
Oh, yes. She wants to blast that key apart.
Yes.
Deal. I'm gonna say I don't want to know how many points you have left. I need a lightning bolt, which not hard. I need a 15.
A 15. I will spend 5.
Deal.
Bring that to a 10.
Deal.
I rolled a natural 20.
A witch's hand the size of a canyon stops. You don't sense anger, you sense surprise at surprise. All of the eyes, all of the unhidden audience across the world watching this, like, gasp and leap and like, this wasn't written, this wasn't part of the story, as the key just goes into the air. Noticing it, they still maintain a calm finger down at Dolly as they're watching Granny with eyes almost impressed.
Do I recognize her, by the way?
I would say even without a roll, no.
Okay.
Mostly made of ocean and kelp and moss and swamp. But there's this large finger in front of Dolly. Marlo to Thoria, while you see the lightning bolt and Dolly running towards, what are the two of you doing in this loaded moment? Amazing natural 20.
I don't know that I'm like capable of anything right now. I think the candle was lit and I closed my eyes and made my wish, and then this giant grandmother witch appeared, and I was like ready. I was like, here we go. So I think I'm just a little dumbfounded.
Marlo.
I think Marlo's now completely encased with these purple foamy bubbles. You can kind of see almost like a heartbeat, like rhythm to it, maybe kind of a light from inside, but you can't see him anymore.
The last thing you hear as it, kind of seals itself off, this voice that sounds like castles in the air, echoing from this creature. I'm here. Is it good that I'm here? Will it be kind to me? And they're going down to Dolly and like, I didn't mean to drop you so long ago. And you, looks at Marlo. I'm so sorry I held you so close. And there's a little finger like out, kind of pokes Marlo a little bit, but then just nods when they see the cocoon. And they're legitimately offering Jess Dolly to jump up if they so want, but they're looking at Gran with a strange fraternal type eye, a different glance at Tithoria with pride. Dolly and Marlo get a much more endearing stare from this creature.
Yeah. Dolly was definitely, without meaning to, pulling its attention. And she does kind of clamber up a little onto its hand. And
made of water with like a piece of driftwood that just stays in place.
Yeah. And I think she just says, I kept things that reminded me of you. I have so many things.
The laugh fills the earth. As you can see now the clouds have gathered, you look at Tithoria and this form you're on, both with one with moss, one with cloud over themselves. Marlo fully in a safe place, finally. But this large form is looking and starts picking up just handfuls now of dirt from the swamp. Like you see fiddles and like hope chests and things, and they just start swallowing it. You see the mouth growing larger and larger as the first witch begins to eat the land and the trees, the buildings, water just flowing from them. You see one of your favorite ruins. It used to be some sort of church or temple. Go down and you can watch in the throat as it floats in and finds its place amongst their body. They're looking at Granny as they begin to eat their young, but with sad eyes. Is it good that I'm here? And when they ask you that, Grans, it seems sincere. They don't know.
No, Gran. Go back to sleep.
You know, you must consume to create, and I love all my children as much as you do. Come, remember and be remembered forever. And they put a hand in front of you, flowers, colors, little hummingbird and algae. It's like a miniature garden in their palm. Waters are rising.
No!
And I think Gran is going to spend the last of her points, all 28 of them, to call down lightning again to try to blast this thing. And she'll use the emeralds as a conduit if she can.
Roll me. I mean, just add 28 to whatever you roll.
Okay.
If you do it, and let's see what this does. You just rolled a natural 20.
Can I? I want to. How are you calling the lightning, Gran?
I think she holds up the emeralds and calls it to the stone, and then the stone like refocuses all of it into a single like emerald colored light beam.
It's lightning. So I'm gonna come up, and as your hand is in the air, I am gonna reach out, and I put my hand around the wrist that's in the air, and I lean forward and I give you a kiss on the cheek, and then I point my finger at the first witch so that the lightning arcs through and out me.
Amazing. Are you giving Gran points for mechanics? If not, I will.
I want to assist her in some way.
Roll me with advantage, Gran, and add 28.
Great, because the first time I rolled, that was a natural 1.
It's best you hadn't told me yet.
Welcome.
Yup.
Okay, here we go.
I rolled a 16 plus 28, 44.
40. Oh my gosh, 44. It does shoot. Dolly, even on the little finger, like sees a lightning bolt streak by and smash against the chest of this creature. And for a moment, the soil and the muck and the swamp that makes up their body splits, and you see like a blue whale going inside of them, a massive fish and like a tentacled creature peeking out at you as water starts to flow out from their chest from the wound you've made. They don't appear to be overly concerned about it, but they are watching you, I'll say repeatedly, casting these spells. Like Graham is throwing all her magic at this moment, and they are watching you with a kindness now, like a softness and a to be expectedness to it. As the waters rise to the point, I'd say they're about 3 feet, 4 feet below your level on the tower. Like the trees have become saplings because of how high the water is.
And I think, being out of points, Ol Grans falls.
Oh.
It doesn't have to be any sort of death fall, but I would say a collapse
Yeah.
where there's the inability to do more. But you saved them all for the end. Granny tried.
May I, at that point, the cocoon almost kind of withers, and what's left behind is the skeleton of a little boy. But there's a burst of fluorescent moths, a lot like the ones that come out of Dolly's head, and just kind of these sparkling green spores. But they just kind of swirl around Gran, and I will give her what's left of my points, if I may.
You're here. Is it good that you're here?
I hope so.
Do you think it'll be kind to you?
I don't know.
Granny's body, as these spells are just hitting it, arm after arm, hand after hand, till it's hundreds of these hands are just drinking the sea, the swamp. One hand just for these precious items, and you hear voices from unseen mouths going, I love it. Thank you for thinking of me here at the end. And she's gathering all the things from the swamp in a whole different part of her body, and it's making up what would be the heart. You see in their center from these wounds and the lightning, all these souvenirs gathering and starting to pulse. They didn't start pulsing until they were struck with lightning. And this heart of memory, of abandoned affections begins to boom, 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 in the dead chest of the first witch. A wish and an attack spell have changed something. The eyes far away begin to gasp. Like, what does this mean? What does this mean? The waters start to come over the edge of this little tower, and the witch's hand is out. Dolly is there holding on to like a little tadpole limb. Tithoria, Ol Grans, do you stay in the tower or do you hop on to this offered pall, knowing it probably ends in the same thing?
I think Ol Grans can only face this with defiance. She will remain on the tower, staring it in the eye.
Tithoria.
I am a tree that's been struck by lightning.
Your heart is a flame.
And I'm split into thirds. And I think the third that is closest to grandmother, very creakily, just grows and reaches out to her, and there is a hand-shaped branch that just rests on a part of Gran and stays right there.
Marlo flying around as some pretty new moth situation, and Dolly finally being picked up once again. Dolly, did you want to say something?
I was going to say, through all this, Dolly has been picked up. And then when the heart starts beating, I think there's a moment, and she looks at the first witch, her pilgrim, who she lost before time was time, and who she's been collecting things for. And she just says,
You're always like this. Slow down. Here, let me show you what I've got.
and she will unloose her ribbon, and it undoes her stitching, and she comes apart, and all of the lost things that had been loved and then forgotten and then found and loved again, they all come out, and they're made of light, and it's just everything that any thinking people have ever made.
this beautiful moment where the cloth almost falls and your form is still there, just made of these things, until it starts to shift a little, having lost what it lived up against. Mercilessly and quickly, for your own benefit, she eats you lovingly, a massive tear of salt water just pouring down her face. I will keep you. I will never let you down. Watching the little blue moths around, like shaking a finger, like, don't think you got away from me. But looking at Ol Grans and Tithoria, she tilts her head, looks around the globe, and sees water and the tips of the tallest trees. And the first witch prepares to eat her young. Is there any last thoughts for Tithoria or Ol Grans before this happens? Or just defiance?
I think it is quiet defiance and determination.
You got to give it to her. She is following the magical laws you were taught.
She's a stubborn old broad. That's what she is.
Tithoria.
There's the squeezing of the hand that's on grandmother, and just a piece that we have been together for so long from the beginning.
And stories end so quickly. Even beautiful blue moths taking it all in will one day have to land where there is none. Who knows what happens after that? I wish I could tell you, but that's not for me. That's just part of another story. But stay near small dreams while I count the ways I love you. Adoration louder than the screams as I trace your sprite-like face. Stay clear of small streams, for they churn to hold and kiss you. And if I light this candle in this high place, will you heed your heart and stay? Near me, dull dreams, for a joy it is to know you. And though my eyes are open, I long for your final grace. Fill me, unended, I crave that quiet clearing, and if my tree is rended, climb into it and feel safe. Taste me, first witch, in your terror and your glory. May my heart be brave and pure before magic ends our story.
Hi, I'm Jess. I'm art_fantastical on all social medias. I'm an artist, a writer, a poet. I play on lots of shows. You can find me on the D&D campaign with the Ballad of the Seven Dice channel. Our show there is Rise of Nyarlathotep. We also have a completed Lancer campaign called Phantom Ice. And I also appear on the Graveyard Tapes side story called Queen City Supers, where we play masks and we are teenage superheroes attending superhero trade school, and it's a very cute slice of life superhero story. So if that sounds fun to you, check us out.
Hi, I'm Juicy Garland, a Boston area drag queen and super nerd. You can find me on the internet at Juicy Garland, on the twitters.com and on Blue Sky. You can also find me at juicy.garland on Instagram and on Threads. That one's pluralized for me for real. You can also find me in All Our Faults, which is a Monster Hearts 2 actual play podcast that I am super proud of. I love what we're doing. It is dark, it is horny, it is weird. You'll love it. You can also find me elsewhere on the internets. I do a lot of actual plays both for pods and also for streams. So if you pay attention to my social media, you'll see the things I'm doing next. Thanks.
I'm Feral Moonbeam. You can find me on Blue Sky and the Heart is a Dungeon podcast.
Hi, my name is Susan Quintana. My handle online is Dryad Song. I am a hobbyist, lifelong TTRPG hobbyist. But you can find me most often on Instagram at neither right nor wrong. That's right, like WRITE, because I am also a poet and short form fiction writer.
Hey, I'm Rahrah. I GM the Heart is a Dungeon podcast. Thanks for joining us. You can follow us, The Heart is a Dungeon, on Spotify, YouTube, Twitter, Blue Sky, Instagram, all the places. I show up in a bunch of games and would love to play games with you. Thanks for joining us in this adventure, and